Quick note before we get started, I was announcing another Smite video earlier today. Not going to be able to make that, it would take a little bit too much time, so that's coming tomorrow along with probably some Smash content, or at least streaming some Smash. And today we're going to look at the Fallout patch that already came out but didn't really come out. So if you have been following Fallout 76 as of late, there's been a lot of controversy. I'm not going to get into all of it, but they've messed up horribly with a lot of things. The latest thing has been them basically leaking people's private information through the support system to other people, and it's just a sorry mess of any sort of controlled environment for a game and structured planning or anything. But nevertheless, they are releasing patches, and I still find the game enjoyable, so I will still talk about it. And in this context, they made another mistake, and that was they released a patch on December 4th, but the patch notes for that particular patch were very, very incomplete. I didn't originally talk about the patch notes because I had kind of talked about most of it in the preview or whatever it was for those patches already, and there wasn't really much new in there anymore, but now there actually is, because there is a ton of stuff that wasn't talked about at all. And now those patch notes have been updated a few hours ago, so we're going to talk about it now. We're going to do this more in a traditional Smite patch notes format where I'm just going through them. I hope that's okay. So there is a note from them as well. In an effort to be more transparent with our patch notes, below is a full list of changes included in Tuesday's patch. For the upcoming patches and all future patches, our goal is to deliver accurate, comprehensive notes. If we miss something, we'll work to get it right and deliver the information to you as quickly as we can. We're also looking to share a list of known issues to give you a better sense of what we're working on. Again, something that I think is commendable, and the fact that they do this update to the patch notes they already released is also something good. It's always a bit of a too little too late situation after the complaints are already through, kind of, but we're used to it at this point. But this one is good anyways. So let's jump into the changes. General performance, PC frame rates are once again uncapped. However, reaching very high frame rates will no longer cause movement speed to increase. This was originally fixed in the November 19th patch. I tried this already, I uncapped my frame rate, and it actually works relatively well right now. So it feels a lot smoother than before when you have an uncapped frame rate and you get those higher frames. The unfortunate thing is that depending on the environment, depending on the lighting, the frame rate can go down a lot. So in some environments I can get 120-ish frame rates, and in other environments at other daytimes I can drop down to even like as low as 40 frames sometimes, which is still, you know, fine I guess, but obviously very far away from the max that you can reach here. And I'm not quite sure what exactly the cause is. I think it's not just the lighting, I think enemies and stuff also play a role here, but it needs some smoothing here and some further optimizing that I think is being worked on. And second, stability. The Fallout 76 game client and servers have received additional stability improvements. Camp crafting and workshops. And now we get the first ones that were added on December that were not December 6th, that were not originally there. Ballistic fiber can now appear in train station vendor and ammo vending machine inventories and can be purchased for caps. We already have the option to buy bulk ballistic fiber right now, sometimes at least, and it's relatively expensive. So I'm expecting ballistic fiber to be similarly expensive. So it's probably not something you will buy all too often, and that's unfortunate because you need it, but then again, there's a perk for that, there's White Knight for that, to use less of it. Vendors added guaranteed bulk repair components to train station vendors, also very nice. Workshops. Higher level resource collectors now generate ore instead of scrap. Ore can be smelted into varying amounts of the related type of scrap using some acid at a chemistry station. This is something you could already do before with ores if you just looted them from the ground yourself. Now this is true for the resource collectors as well. It's not really that big of a deal in my opinion, because acid isn't that hard to come by as long as you keep track of it. I'm running around with like above 100 constantly, and I basically only use it for this, so fair enough. I think that's actually nice to get rid of some carry weight. Workshops. Resource collectors' accrual rate and carrying capacities have been reduced for each resource, including ammo and fusion core collectors. This one, I think some of it is fair. Like the problem with fusion cores was that it was just too easy to get a ton of them, and they basically never run out. There was a glitch to keep them going as well. So I can see why the fusion cores are nerfed a little bit. I think the direction here is to take away a little bit of the potential to constantly just run around in power armor for everyone. And the other one, ammo, I find a bit more questionable. I understand that, you know, there needs to be some sort of restriction to some kinds of ammo, but I think the limitation is now 200 ammo, no matter what it is, from as far as I was able to find out. And for some ammos, it's just a little low, a little bit annoying. Stash, maximum stash storage has been increased by 50% to 600 pounds. This was already in the original patch, and the planning to increase the storage cap further in the future once they verified that this change does not impact the stability of the game. I gotta say, so far with 600 pounds, I'm actually in a pretty okay situation. I don't feel like I need more than 600 pounds. This may change in late game, and this may change when I actually sacrifice some of my carry weight perks. At that point, I may feel like I want some more in my stash again. But right now, at least around level 40 something, it's not been an issue for me. It would only become an issue if I find a lot of late game items that I want to keep for sure. We'll see. I would rather see more adjustments to the budget that you have for building, because right now the budget is either you build a really nice house or you build a crappy house with some turrets and no in between. And I would like to see like defensive budget and building budget be separate from each other, so that we can actually build cool things and still have some defenses. Balance. Scorch Beast Queen encounters with a Scorch Beast Queen have been rebalanced to better accommodate 8 high-level players, and her damage mitigation has been reduced from 50% to 30%. Haven't fought that yet, so don't know if that's fair, but I guess she was just a bit too strong. Weapons. Automatic weapon damage has been increased by approximately 20% across the board. Additionally, weapons that have been modded to become automatic have received a 5% damage increase. This is definitely good. Automatic weapons were just tickling the enemies most of the time and did not feel like they were worth it in almost any situation, even with the perks, so giving that some buffs is more than fair. Bosses fixed an issue affecting instant boss loot. Players should now correctly receive 2 to 4 items per boss, depending on the creature's difficulty level. Apparently this is not quite working yet. I'm not sure if it's working now on the 6th of December, if they adjusted that further so it's actually implemented fully. But either way, it's good that bosses have some sort of guaranteed loot at least. Enemies, XP rewards for killing high-level creatures have been reduced. And this is actually quite significant. I didn't realize this would affect me already, but high-level creatures is not as high as you'd think it may sound. Like, for me, like, a lot of enemies have like almost dropped. Maybe not halfway in XP, but close to that. So grinding up is gonna take a lot longer. I guess it makes sense. I guess they don't want people to over level all too quickly, but at the same time, it's a bit annoying if you weren't one of the early ones that leveled very quickly. So it's also to me. PvP, weapon effects. Hitting another player with a Cryolator now applies a chilled, frost, or frozen status based on how many times they're hit. The duration of movement speed reduction applied by these changes, by these effects have been significantly decreased. So that was like going for an hour before, now it's going for a few minutes or a few seconds even. And yeah, it's just balanced for PvP now. And PvP will in itself not be balanced for quite a long time though. So yeah, just a drop in the ocean in that regard. Bug fixes, stability and performance. PS4 addressed an issue that could cause reductions in performance on PS4. Console fixed an issue that could cause the player to encounter an infinite loading screen when signing out of their console account while playing Fallout 76. Actually, you kind of have that same thing on PC as well, or I have it at least, but oh well. Xbox addressed a crash that could occur when sending multiple team invites immediately after exiting Vault 76 to a player who is not a friend. General, caps, addressed an exploit that could allow players to gain caps at a faster rate than intended. Power armor, fixed an issue affecting power armor frames that could prevent the player from exiting their power armor. DukeSloth flipboards inside DukeSloth no longer display portions of the launch code too soon after the codes were reset for the week. Traps, players can no longer continuously disarm the same grenade trap. This was also an XP hack, so to speak, XP trick. I think another trick is still in the game. Unfortunately, as far as I know, that has not been fixed. There's a duping bug right now. At least I haven't heard anyone addressing this. I hope that gets done soon, especially with these other glitches, you know, being very abusable. Camp workshops and crafting. Workshops address an issue that could prevent enemies from attacking a workshop that has been claimed by a player. Moving camp locations will now correctly move standalone items built by the player into the build menu's stored tab. Turrets will no longer become invisible if the player is not present at their camp when their turrets are destroyed. I had this once. It's super weird because you can't even repair the turret. Like, even if you go to your camp and say repair all structures, the turret will not reappear. Workshops on PS4 wires will no longer appear to float in mid-air when attempting to connect two or more objects. Enemies. Robobrains now use their own loot list instead of the sentry pod loot list and have a chance after level 40 to drop the Tesla gun plan. Perks per cards. Ranking up a perk card will no longer cause a duplicate card to appear. PvP. Damage scaling. Address an issue that could cause players above levels 50 to deal less PvP damage than intended when using high level weapons. So this was an issue where basically a level 70 player would be weaker than a level 30 player because of the damage somehow being scaled down in a strange way. Quest. Battle bots. Fix an issue that could prevent this event quest from resuming correctly if the player leaves and then returns to the area. Cold case. Fix an issue that could prevent this quest from progressing to the next step despite repairing Freddy's ID. I had an issue with that one once. Death from above. The Scott-Spießt Queen will now correctly flee the area if the timer expires and the quest is failed. Social. Teams fix an issue that could prevent a team from being correctly formed in the game world after creating the team on the main menu when both players are using new characters. Teams' display durations for social notification have been reduced when many notifications are pending. This should help address an issue in which players did not see that they successfully joined a team. Survival mutations. The electrically charged and unstable isotope mutations no longer provide the player with bonus health. I guess that was a bit too abusable in terms of stacking extra health that way. User interface. Photo mode. Characters no longer use incorrect poses while certain weapons were equipped in the photo mode. AFK, players will now be disconnected from the game world after 10 minutes of inactivity and will be prompted with a 1-minute timer before being kicked. That one I think is off. I think, yes, if you're inactive for way too long, you should be kicked, but I think 10 minutes is way too short. This was already discussed by some people, pointing out that basically disabled people may even need longer to go to the toilet and come back, so they get kicked off their server every single time. Also, you may be wanting to hold a workshop and, be there when there's an attack wave. And for that, you can literally, what I did in between, I was literally eating lunch, watching something, tabbing out, and then just tabbing back in occasionally when I heard any sounds from enemies. And maybe it's not how Bethesda intends the game to be played, but with the whole thing having the focus on base building and you being able to sit around in your base and all that kind of like stuff that you can create, I feel like it's strange that you have to be there all the time. Like, I might, for example, just be in my base that I built, hoping for a player to walk by and have some interaction with them if you have like a really cool base, right? And you could basically be tapped out, just have the audio on so you would hear their voices or their footsteps. And yeah, that could be your way of playing. But with this 10-minute inactivity thing, you would just get kicked out after 10 minutes unless you consistently tap in and walk around a bit and whatever. And I think that shouldn't be. That's not necessary. And a player being on the server doesn't really change the server, doesn't put a strain on it or anything. And if other people want to play together, then they can just go on another server anyways. So I think this AFK should be maybe after 30 minutes, but not after 10. Atomic Shop. On PC, cursor position will no longer be disjointed from clicks in the Atomic Shop while using 16:10 resolutions. Enemies, red crosshairs and enemy health bars will no longer persist on screen when an enemy is no longer in view. I had that sometimes, it just got stuck, it was just a weird glitch where you couldn't get rid of it until you target another enemy. Localization, subtitles will now appear correctly, and English voiceover will play for game clients in languages that do not have their own localized voiceover when listening to a holotape or interacting with robots. Pip-Boy. Fix an issue that could cause duplicate data to appear in the Pip-Boy's stat and effects interfaces. Respawn. Dying while severely overencumbered will no longer remove all map markers when attempting to respawn. Instead, the player can now respawn at the nearest discovered map marker. Quest Tracker. Quest objective notifications will no longer appear for inactive quests immediately upon connecting to the world. So these are the notes. There might be some more. There are some mentions of certain stealth nerfs, but I was unable to verify them, so I think there's a lot of rumors going around as well. I think there are some changes to melee damage. I'm not sure where they are in this, or they may still be coming. But for example, there was a claim that you get less plans from workshops now, and I went on to verify that and just claimed a few workshops, and I just got the same amount of plans, so it really didn't change anything for me. So be a bit cautious of potential changes that are not listed here, or claims that changes are not listed here. There may be some, and it seems like there are some, but unless you can definitely confirm them, I wouldn't take anyone saying anything here as fact immediately, simply because I was able to debunk that one, and there were a few other ones that seemed rather odd or rather anecdotal, and yeah, not really confirmable. I think there's something regarding spawns as well, which doesn't seem to show up here. Again, one that I haven't fully verified, but I'm pretty sure I've read it from a Bethesda employee somewhere actually. So I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it in this list anymore. And that was regarding spawns, in the sense that as of now, if you, like before this patch, when you walked into an area, all creeps would respawn, all mobs would respawn, even if somebody else was in that area and had cleared it out already, or like everyone like around there, and that happened to us a few times when we were playing. And apparently that doesn't happen anymore right now, so that may also be a change that's not listed. But again, take this with a grain of salt. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. That's it for this video. I hope this was interesting to those of you who are interested in Fallout 76 as of now. See you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth out.